Hello, y'all. So I just want to make a quick video going over what I realize is a big issue in America and in my country of America. Is that because everyone's talking about, oh, the Democratic Party is not unified, it's fumbling apart, and it is, and I will agree. But the Republican Party isn't unified really either. The only thing that there's just like how the Democratic Party was unified against Trump for his presidency, for Donald Trump's presidency, the Republican Party is only unified in its opposition to Joe Biden. And the reason why is because when you are in such a deadlocked two-party system, the two parties have to be quote-unquote big tent parties. No, this is usually in many different countries, but like it's especially apparent in America because like in other countries you could have, like in Canada, they have the liberals, they have the conservatives, the quote unquote conservatives, but they have the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party of Canada. Then they also have the NDP, which is a big third party for even farther left policies. And so that's why I'm like the liberals don't have to. Anyways. But like there's also in Germany especially with a lot of their parties. Like there's a lot of parties. But in America we have a two-party system. So they have to be inherently, and like I said, Americans continue a political problem, the inherent disunity in big tent parties, like what ours are. Because as I'm about to get to, in the Democratic Party, there are now on the outside are the voters and what they would, be. We got the progressives, we got the left-wing libertarians, the neoliberals, and the Clinton/Blue Dog Democrats. I don't know how much of them are real and how much of them are imagined. I'd have to do like research on that. Because as a person that's grown up in, a right-wing household, we hear about these Blue Dog Democrats, the myth of these Blue Dog Democrats. I'm like, did they actually ever exist? Because growing up, the only thing I heard from the Democratic Party was far leftism and some or very staunch leftism. So I'm like, Now, usually during the Obama administration, it wouldn't be progressives holding the mantle, but it would be leftism, like fiscally irresponsible leftism. But anyways, so yeah, there's progressive voters, left-wing libertarians, neoliberals, and Clinton/Blue Dog Democrats. And then in the Senate Democrats, there's mainly three types of ideologies that I have discovered. The progressives, especially Bernie Sanders, like that's in the Senate. In the House, there's also the Progressive Caucus, but mainly Maya Jayarabal, Ilhan Omar, AOC, and I think one other one was a part of the squad. One or two more in the squad, but those are the big three. Well, the big one now is Maya Jayarabal, and then AOC is like because Maya Jayarabal is the leader of the Progressive Caucus, I believe. So there's that. But I think there's a good 10 or 11 Justice Democrats, which is what they ran on, which is the corporation that they ran with and the group that they ran with. Were the Justice Democrats. Cori Bush is a part of that. From St. Louis, Missouri. She's from St. Louis, Missouri. Anyways, but in the Senate, right, in government, there's the progressives, but Bernie Sanders especially, but also kind of Elizabeth Warren, because I don't know whether to distinguish her between a corporate establishment Democrat and a progressive Democrat, because she campaigns as a progressive, and a lot of the time talks and walks like a progressive, but then sometimes doesn't vote with the progressives, and so I'm like, or I think she votes with the progressives like all the time, but then or a lot of the time, but then gets her money sometimes from corporations that she rails against. So I'm like, it's very weird. It's the two-facedness of politics. And then 46 of the senators, or no, 45 I should have put. 45 of their 50 are just corporate establishment shills. From California to Maine. Yeah, from California to Maine, they're just corporate establishment nothing new. They're the general neoliberal establishment. But then there's the fiscally conservative Democrats, who are fiscally conservative and socially more liberal, like Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, obviously. But one that hasn't been talked about in the media as much, or actually at all, because he's from a state that, frankly, doesn't isn't it's big, quote unquote, but it's not populated that much. Is John Tester from Montana. And at first I was like, oh, he's probably just a corporate establishment who is from Montana, so he runs as if he's a centrist, but doesn't act like it, like the Georgia senators, Alsop and Warnock, but also Kelly from Arizona. I believe I know Arizona senator probably ran as a centrist and then got elected and immediately ran to the left. Or that was that Kirsten Sinema, who she ran as the leftist and ran as an environmentalist progressive, won in Arizona, and then immediately centered herself. I don't know, I'd have to look that up. Oh, but yeah, fiscally conservative Democrats: Joe Manchin, John Tester, and Kirsten Sinema. Now, for me as a right wing person, by the way, center right person, to classify a Democrat as a fiscally conservative Democrat is one that has multiple times over and over voted against measures that would increase spending by tremendous amounts or waste money in certain areas. John Tester has done it. He hasn't done it as much as Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema, but he's done it. He's done it enough. And he's from Montana. So I'm like, He's also a gun owner, but also advocates for gun bans and background checks and just making it illegal to basically own a firearm. It was like a whole thing. I think in the beginning when he got elected, he tried to be more moderate on the gun issue. And then as time progressed, he progressed into becoming more and more left on it. Oh, but yeah, this was the factions in the Democratic Party. There's the voters, like the progressives, the Clintons, like the Blue Dog, the Blue Dog Democrats, the neoliberals, and the left-wing libertarians. And then there is the factions, which I would know very well because like I said in other videos, I align myself more with the values of the Republican Party, quote-unquote values of the Republican Party. As in, I wouldn't vote for Democrats a lot of the time. I can see myself sometimes voting for a Democrat if they're not, wild. Like, I would vote for Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. Not John Tester, but I would vote for Joe Manchin especially. Or Kirsten Sinema, but not really any of the other ones. Anyways, factions in the Republican Party. Voter bases. Christians. I was going to put religious people, but other religions, like religions other than Christianity, just don't vote for the Republican Party. Yeah. In massive swaths like the Christians do. Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, non-religious, and Jewish people vote in droves for the Democratic Party. So it's just the Christians, which make up a lot of America. So it's enough to get a boost in their votes. But anyways, Christians, right-wing libertarians, liberal Republicans / right-wing populists, and boomers / neoconservatives. Oh my goodness. As you can tell, my disdain for the boomer conservatives / neoconservatives is just so okay, especially boomer conservatism. Anyways, in the Senate Republicans, I have on the more left wing is liberal Republicans, where they would be social, just like Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. They'd be liberal on social issues and conservative on fiscal issues. So, especially Lisa Murkowski and Suzanne Collins, they're the big liberal Republicans. And I threw in Rob Portman maybe because he's not as right wing as the vast majority of the Republicans in the Senate and in the House, probably, but in the Senate. But he's like, and he went from not supporting gay marriage to supporting it in 2013. And I believe he's changed some other positions on things, on social issues, and he's tried to work as much as a and he voted to convict Trump, and he just, it seems like, has distanced himself from some of the Republicans and what the Republicans are pushing in some instances. So I'm like, I imagine he would vote for, he may vote for background checks, but I'd have to look that up. 43 Republican senators are just corporate establishment shells. Like Lisa Murkowski, Suzanne Collins are also corporate shells a lot of the time. Basically all of these are corporate shells. It's just that there's a slight difference between these 3 senators and the other 43 in ideology and the way that they vote. Then the conservatives, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, and Ron Johnson of Missouri, Texas, and Wisconsin. Now, I forgot to add, but I think I would add Tom Cotton in there from, I think, Tennessee, but I don't know. But I believe I think I would add Tom Cotton in there because he's recently gotten fired up and tried to combat the Biden administration. Not in a corporate / establishment or boomer conservative way, but he's actually talked about why it is so bad in a conservative way. Let's say that. And on the more far right end would be libertarians, because oh my goodness, when you've met an actual libertarian, they're on the verge of being, I say that because I know one, and they're not even a libertarian, they're basically an anarchist. So I'm like, well, I think, would they be considered, because real libertarians are not left-wing libertarians. They're basically anarchists who just want government for one thing. That would be criminal justice, and that would be it. So, but yeah, that'd be Rand Paul. This time of Ron Paul, who was also a congressperson. So I'm a congressman. So I'm Rand Paul definitely inherited his father's ideas and on a lot of things. But yeah, he'd be a libertarian. Yeah, that's it. I just wanted to go over this. Yeah, I just want to go over in a short video to be the factions in the Republican Party, the factions in the Democrat Party, and the inherent disunity in big tent parties. Because the Democratic Party right now is letting the progressives drive it in such a way that they left out the left-wing libertarians, the neoliberals, and the Clinton/blue, especially the Clinton Democrats, the blue dog Democrats. So they're letting their far left, and I'm not even saying this, you can go look at their policies over the past decade and the things that they tried to push over the past decade that has resulted in much backlash from the American people. And the only reason why they would win is because the people wouldn't vote for their ideas, but would vote because they didn't like Trump. So I'm and that's what we saw in 2021 in Virginia, is the repudiation of the Democratic progressives, and so until they try to appeal to those Clinton blue dog Democrats, but also it's just a fact, but you got to appeal to suburban people, but also rural, or just farmers. They go back to appealing to farmers, stuff like that. Basically center themselves away from progressivism. The Republican Party, that, basically if I was a Democratic Party strategist, I would want to be more open, because right now they're very hostile to Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, But I think if I was a Democratic Party strategist, I would want to be open to different viewpoints in the Democratic Party, and anyway, stuff like that. More trying to moderate itself. The Republican Party, oh my goodness. As someone who, would vote Republican and probably will vote Republican almost every time, I have my reservations about the party. Let's just say that as the least. But yeah, Christians, right-wing libertarians, liberal Republicans / right-wing populists, and boomer neocons make up this. But and the different factions. Now, something I will say is that the Republican Party is quote unquote more unified. Like, it's, I don't even know how to describe it, because I don't imagine we've had this style of fighting in the Republican Party. Maybe we did 20 years ago when George Bush had a 50-50 Senate, and with Republican 50 Republicans in the Senate and his vice president to get 51. Maybe then the Republicans were fighting over whatever they were fighting over. But yeah, that will be my video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.